Hello and welcome to the Sustainable Materials Management Webinar Series, a joint effort between the National Recycling Coalition and the Pennsylvania Recycling Market Center. My name is Wayne Bowen and I'm a Program Manager for the Recycling Market Center and will serve as your moderator today. Before we get started with the presentation, we would like to extend a special thanks to Bob Hollis of the Mobius Network for providing the webinar management software for this series. The focus of today's webinar is on utilizing internet-based resources to advance sustainable materials management. Our presenter is Scott Marks, who I will introduce in a moment. Following his presentation, we will conduct a question and answer session. If you have a question or comment, please use the GoToWebinar dialog box located in the control panel on your screen. You may also use the dialog box to request assistance if you're experiencing difficulties during the webinar. Please note that an edited version of this webinar will be made available for viewing via YouTube links on the National Recycling Coalition and PA Recycling Market Center websites. The presentation slides can also be obtained using the handout upload feature on your webinar control panel. And now I'd like to introduce our presenter. Scott Marks is a Recycling Program Manager at the Pennsylvania Recycling Market Center. You may be familiar with Scott as he moderated our December 2018 webinar and several others. Prior to coming to RMC, Scott worked in the information technology sector for over 20 years, primarily in network systems and information security. Scott holds a bachelor's degree in mechanical engineering from Penn State Harrisburg and is currently pursuing a master's degree in renewable energy systems engineering. Okay, Scott, the program's yours.
Thank you, Wayne, and thanks to everyone for taking some time today to watch our webinar. So as Wayne said, there's the background, my educational background. What we do here at the Recycling Market Center, Wayne and I are both program managers here, is our primary mission is to help establish markets for recycled materials within the state. We are a state-funded agency associated with Penn State. So really our goal is to reach out to both consumers and producers of recycled waste with Pennsylvania municipalities and companies. And oftentimes, the municipalities and some smaller companies don't have engineering expertise there. So we can step in and provide engineering expertise to these companies, as well as coordinate with Penn State for academic research. For instance, if somebody was looking for a novel use for a recyclable material that might be a little different than what they're used to recycling, they can come to us and we can give them advice, and we can actually do studies that the professors here can work on. So as Wayne said, I came from a long career in IT. I was in the military. I did systems and communication stuff in the military, and then I kind of grew up with the internet. I did systems and network administration, got into internet security, auditing, and finally IT corporate management. So I hope that the combination of my experience helps to guide this discussion. So what I'm going to talk about is we're going to talk about cloud or web-based applications. I'm going to go over some basic productivity applications that everyone might be using. You guys might be using a lot of these applications already. I'm also going to talk about a lot of the resources that you can find on the net pertaining to sustainability, sustainable materials management, recycling, and so forth. And the applications that I'm going to show you, these are ones that I've used, I have experience with, but you know, I'm sure your company's IT is going to govern what sort of applications that you use. But all these different categories that I'm going to show you are pretty general, so you should be able to figure out which of your systems may apply, or if you're looking for a system, you can use this as a starting point to for your research. And you know, normally when we do these webinars, we do the questions at the end, but I'd like for this session to be as interactive as possible. So go ahead on the questions tab on the GoToMeeting control panel. And if you have questions, as I'm in the middle of explaining something, Wayne's going to is going to monitor the questions as they're coming in, and I'll be watching them. So I will be interrupting my presentation to answer questions where appropriate. So having said all that, let's get going. So I'm sure everyone's heard about the cloud. Well, what is the cloud? And according to NIST, cloud computing is a model for enabling ubiquitous, convenient, on-demand network access to a shared pool of configurable computing resources. Okay, now that we've read the definition, what is it really? What it is, back, maybe 10, 15 years ago, corporate environments, you had server rooms and you had raised floor rooms and you had a whole squad of network administrators, systems administrators. All your mail was handled in-house. All your applications that you would use were all handled in-house. Well, over the past several years, these applications have all gone to this cloud computing model. Now, buzzwords, there are so many buzzwords when it comes to this sort of stuff, so I may use some terms interchangeably. So please, if you don't understand the term that I use, please hop in and ask. But basically what cloud computing is all of the IT resources that we used to have in these server rooms are now housed, somewhere off-site. And you're able to access your data and your applications via your desktop computer at work, your laptop computer at home, your tablet, your smartphone. All of the data can be accessed on the cloud. So what are some of the advantages of cloud applications? Well, your applications and data are accessible from anywhere. You don't have to worry about going into the office or going through some kind of firewall, some kind of VPN to get into your corporate data, because now most of that corporate data is in the cloud. The other really big advantage, certainly coming from a data security background, the data is continuously being backed up so that you don't have to worry about, quote, losing data if you forget to save something or whatever, because when you're working in the cloud systems will ordinarily back up as you're going, so that you have your latest version. Talking about security, obviously your data is in the cloud now, so that is definitely something to think about as your IT group is going towards, is choosing a solution, because now they don't have control of it. It's not in their server room. It's not protected by the extra key lock to get in there. It's out on the cloud. And then lastly, obviously, if you don't have a big server room, you don't have to necessarily have the same network guys and systems guys and mail guys, because it's all happening out on the cloud now. So some sample cloud applications that you might be familiar with. Here's a screenshot of my Google mailbox. Google, that lives in the cloud. I can get at it from my phone, my tablet, my computer. It's always going to show me what I want to see. Amazon. So this is Amazon Prime. So these are different videos. Let's talk a little bit about Amazon. So Amazon uses something called Amazon Web Services. You might have seen the commercials for it. They're selling it more aggressively now. But basically, what it is Amazon has just hundreds, thousands of computers and server facilities all over the world. And so looking at this page here, as I went to the web page and I hit enter, it's likely pulling that data from wherever. So for instance, it might pull the images from this server that might be in Silicon Valley. It might pull the text from Texas. The stuff is just out there. And what the Amazon Web Services is basically what they're selling their bandwidth. Bandwidth is how big the internet connection is, how fast, how big the pipe is. I'm trying not to use too much jargon, so hopefully you guys are following. But the speed of your internet connection is the size of the pipe, so to speak. So what they're doing is they're selling pieces of the pipe, and they're selling pieces of their infrastructure so that people that are developing applications can use it. Now, obviously, Amazon built all of this infrastructure to drive Amazon. But what you may not be aware of is many big companies use Amazon. For instance, Netflix. Everyone knows Netflix, and there's a gazillion movies and tons of data. Well, Netflix built their system on top of Amazon Web Services. In fact, the vast majority of Amazon's profits come from selling Amazon Web Services, not from all of us buying all the stuff that we buy on Amazon. So in any case, Amazon is certainly a cloud app. And there's a number of file storage applications. Everyone's probably using one of these, whether it's Dropbox or Google Drive, Microsoft OneDrive, and then you have Box.net. We use both OneDrive and Box.net here at Penn State. I use Dropbox at home, and one of the things that you're going to hear me continue to talk about is just the utility of being able to access this data, whether you're on a mobile device or whether you're on a tablet. And it's so convenient, that if I'm sitting in a meeting and I need to pull up something that's stored on our OneDrive, I know that I can just pull it up on the phone and it's all right there. And that's why these services have become so popular, because everybody wants to be able to do that. Everyone's more productive. Businesses are becoming more mobile. A lot of employees are working from home a couple days a week, and so these sorts of technologies are required so that businesses can still continue to operate as they did, and certainly improve their efficiencies as well.
Hey, Scott.
Yeah.
Scott.
Yeah.
There's some questions coming in on security. So I don't know if you're going to mention it later, but how secure are these applications?
So security, I guess my nickel statement on security in general is that you really have to trust what company that you're going with. So any of the bigger established companies like a Google Drive or a Dropbox, and like I have all my tax stuff is all sitting in Dropbox, so I am trusting Dropbox to manage my data. Now, we've all heard these horror stories of different sites getting hacked, and you hear about the stuff on the news, and you find out your social security number might be compromised. It's overwhelming sometimes what you hear. But really, the bottom line is that everyone's using these applications, and at least for me, having worked in IT security for so many years, I used to get questions all the time. Like when Amazon first started getting big and more people, other than computer geeks, were buying things on Amazon, I always used to get questions about, well, is it safe to buy on Amazon? Do you worry about using your credit card? And my stock answer to that is that certainly when you're guarding your credit card information, the most proactive thing that you can do is just make sure that you look at your charges every month. I know that when I use my credit cards on my app, the app on my phone, I can have it set so that whenever a charge is made, I get a little pop-up message on the phone. And certainly that if there would be an unauthorized charge there, it would pop up right there, and you could say, oh, hey, wait, I didn't order something from Lower Mongolia, and then you could deal with the credit card company. But the bottom line is that in the terms of credit cards, the credit card companies bear the responsibility of fraud when you're making credit card purchases. So my statement on credit cards would be, don't be afraid to use them online. Just be diligent about making sure your statement is correct, and so forth. But as far as the security of the sites themselves, there are a number of different standards that sites have to meet. There are different NIST security standards that all major business systems conform to. There are banking standards, and certainly these big multinational companies that are publicly traded. I mean, it's mind-numbing how many different security regulations that they have to conform to. I hate to say you have to trust them, but you kind of have to trust them. Yeah, hopefully that's a good enough answer for now. And if you have a more specific question about a specific instance, go ahead and pop it in there, and I'll see if I can address it. Okay, so the next type of commonly used web application or so-called notebooking applications, things like Evernote, Microsoft OneNote, Zoho Notebook. I use Evernote mostly. I use some Microsoft OneNote. And what I'm going to do is whenever we're talking about some of the SMM resources, the Sustainable Materials Management resources, I'm actually going to capture some data using Evernote so that everyone can see kind of how that one works at least. And this is just a little screenshot of one of my notebooks that I have. And you can, if you look on the left-hand side of the screen, you can create notebooks and arrange them by topics. And this particular one happens to be do-it-yourself manufacturing using these microcontrollers, because that's part of my research interest. So, but you can literally set up notebooks for whatever you want to do, and I'll show you all how to do that a little bit later. There's a lot of video conferencing and collaboration software. You know, certainly everyone here is familiar with GoToMeeting, as that's what we're on. You have WebEx, you have Skype. Another one that's fairly popular and I believe has some free plans is Zoom. Penn State uses Zoom, so we use Zoom, both Zoom and GoToMeeting. So those are your video conferencing, you know, webinar or remote presentation type software. But there's also some other collaboration types of software, and the two that I have listed here are Slack and Microsoft Teams. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to show you a Slack instance that we have here. So what you guys are looking at here is at Penn State, the libraries has a Slack instance set up so that, you know, people that are coordinating, interested in library business, they can get in and take a look here. And on the left-hand side, you can see there's a number of different channels. There happens to be two channels here, general and random. And these are just people typing in, asking questions about the library. Here you can see that somebody posted something about this Journal of Infometric something or another. So so that's what Slack does. And Slack does have a, it's probably the biggest, other than the Microsoft tool, which I'm going to show you in a minute. Slack is probably the biggest company out there. The nice thing about Slack is you can use it for free. And what they do is if you get so many messages, I think it might be 2 million messages, you know, that's when they're going to want you to upgrade to a normal plan. So if you're a small municipality or a really small office, you could use a tool like this for free and not have to worry about it. However, if you're a bigger company, you know, you're going to want to get a license for it. And even the licenses are fairly reasonable, like maybe $5 a user or something like that. So in any case, that's what Slack is. And a similar tool is Microsoft Teams, and it's what we use here at Penn State. And if you look on the left-hand side of the screen here, these are a number of different channels that I use. This here is actually a whole different group. I'm involved with an engineering project team that's putting together something here. So they invited me to their team. But one of the things, and I didn't mention this on my introduction, is I'm focused a lot on electronic scrap issues and electronics recycling in the state. So I have a team set up here for these sorts of things. And for instance, I went to the eScrap conference at the last year. So what I did was I'm gonna wait for this to do what it's doing here. So what I actually used here is I used Microsoft OneNote on my tablet, and as I was sitting in these sessions, I took the notes on the tablet, and once I did that, I just sent it up to Teams, and that way it's up here. You know, I was the only one from our organization who went, but if Wayne would need to get in, or one of our other colleagues would want to get in and look at any of this stuff, it's all here, it's all in one place, and you can search for it by whatever keywords you might be looking for. All right, so let's go back to the PowerPoint. Okay, so what I want to talk about, so those are the general productivity applications that you know, anyone might use. But what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go into some of the online resources that are targeted towards, you know, sustainable materials management, recycling, those sorts of things. So the best place to start out looking is the EPA. They have a number of different resources that are there, and I'm going to switch over there and show you some of those in a second. So obviously that's the federal government, and there's a lot of good information there. Your state environmental responsible agency is going to have stuff. So for instance, here in Pennsylvania, we have the DEP where we can find information on that. And then you have the larger organizations. The OECD is the UN associated global organization that handles these sorts of issues. And so the links are in the slide, so if you want to get to that later, but what I'm going to do now is I'm actually going to go to some of these pages that I've opened up already for us to take a peek at. So this is the main EPA SMM page, and there's a number of topics in here. And I hope the screen is big enough for you guys. I tried to make the font as big as I could here. So let me go ahead and make that a little bit bigger. Okay. Number of different topics here. So this is kind of like their landing page for SMM. So what I'm going to do now is I'm actually going to go over to a different tab where I've pre-selected some stuff to look at. So what this particular page is, which you could get to from the last page that I was just on, are some different materials management tools. It talks a little bit about why you want to do measurement, what's, you know, what the approach is about, that sort of thing. I am going to talk a little bit about the WARM model. Some of you may be familiar with the WARM model, and actually we did a webinar a few months ago, last year sometime, on the WARM model. So if you want to explore that topic more deeply, just go ahead to the YouTube channel and take a peek at that. But basically what it is the EPA created this model to help solid waste planners track greenhouse gas emissions, and then allow the organizations to do some what if stuff, as far as, well, what if I included this or did not include that, and then they can toggle those various parameters to see what the greenhouse gas impact might be. So that's what the WARM model is. There is a tool here for preventing and diverting wasted food. Go ahead and pop that open here real quick. So you can see there's a number of different things here. We've just drilled into one specific thing here, wasted food. So you can see there's a number of different resources here: grocery stores, schools. They're talking about the WARM model again, and so forth. So this page that I came from here, this tools page, there's a number of different tools in here. So I'm just going to touch on a couple of them, but I definitely recommend, starting, if you're not sure where to start, definitely start at this EPA SMM page. So one of the other pages one of the other tools that's here is a tool that can be used by communities, municipal recycling coordinators, other responsible parties, and all sorts of information about how do I get to zero waste? What policies and programs are out there that I might be able to implement for my municipality? And one of those tools is this Managing and Transforming Waste tool. And thankfully, I'm really glad, if you see at the top of the screen here, you can see that they're talking about the government shutdown, and yeah, we're seeing that banner across the top of every page, unfortunately. In fact, I wanted to show you a couple of pages, but they are completely offline because of the shutdown. So in any case, so this particular tool here is how you can manage and transform your waste streams. And what you can do here is you take a look at the programs here in the second or third column. You assign various sectors, all of these properties here across the top. You go ahead and select those depending upon what you're looking for, and then you hit and then that way you can see what's out there for your particular. It talks about the difficulty level, all these sorts of things. Okay, so that's one particular tool. So what I'm going to show you here is an example of an industrial non-hazardous secondary material. And what I want to show you is this here, this beneficial use state program locator. Because, you know, even though the EPA is trying to provide a clearinghouse towards all of this information, you know, the vast majority of regulations pertaining to these sorts of things are all handled on a state level. So the beneficial state program locator here, let me make this a little bit bigger here. And this was a link that I just clicked off of that last page. So let's say that I want to look for something about construction and demolition debris. I can click on this, and you can see it shows a state, a map of the United States. So let's say I click on Pennsylvania, and what it's going to show you is you initially, and then this is the link to our state DEP page pertaining to solid waste program. So obviously, clicking on another state, you're going to go to that particular link. But what I wanted to show you from here is this recycling directory. So if we open this guy up, you know, these are places where, you know, construction and demolition, salvage material outlets, recyclers, and service providers. So here we can see, okay, so if we're in Eastern Pennsylvania, actually, let me make this a little bit bigger here too. Okay. So here, the state DEP has organized things by region, and it will show things like what do they take, what they don't take. There's usually contact information, websites for further information. So, you know, check for your state, check for your region, and you should see something similar to what we have here in Pennsylvania. Okay, so what I'm going to show you now is as I mentioned, I'm involved with electronic scrap.
Scott,
Yeah.
one quick interruption. I just want to mention the previous, the program, the managing and transforming waste streams, they also have a very powerful sub-site on procurement and contracts, or procurement of contracts and franchises. So I just want to, we got a comment from an attendee.
Oh, okay, great.
So
on the transforming waste streams, this particular thing here, Wayne?
Yeah.
Okay, excellent. Yeah, so electronics products, I'm involved with this. I use this page a reasonable amount. And for instance, if I click on this benefits calculator, it's going to bring me over to this, and this we definitely have to make bigger. So something like this might be used to, let's say that you're a company and you have X number of desktop computers and CRTs and LED monitors. What this will do is you can put in how many have power management, how many don't have power management. And what this will do is this will calculate how much energy you can save by just enabling the power save features of the computer. I know most people, when they leave corporate offices, they don't turn off their computers. They'll leave them on, or they'll leave the monitors on. And you know, that's a lot of power that gets used, certainly after hours. So the computers and monitors and tablets and things like that, they all have energy management stuff built in them. So again, I'm just picking a very specific example of the types of things that you can hit from the EPA pages, depending upon what your particular interest might be. There are sections in here pertaining to organics. There are sections in there pertaining to, you know, all of the different material types. Yeah. So what I'm going to show you now is I'm actually going to show you this. This is software that's developed by NIST, and what it does is you use it to measure the performance of different building products. And what I'm going to do is we'll just run through, we'll just contrive some kind of example here so you guys can see how it works. Okay, there we go. So let's say that I want to look at the shells of buildings. Let's say I'm interested in roofing. and then we pick ceiling insulation. And then it's going to ask you if you're looking for residential, commercial. So why don't we just leave this, let's see here, residential. Okay, let's go with those options. And here you can apply a particular methodology to it. I do want to see what the economic analysis is, so let's choose that. So let's choose like a 5% discount rate. Okay. So what this is doing now is it's just echoing back all of the different parameters that we chose. And now this is going to tell you what its impact is as far as raw materials, manufacturing, transport, installation, and so forth. And I just chose really small values in here. That's why you can see we have 0.00. This is, for those of you, it's been a while since scientific notation. This means that many zeros in front of the number. So very small totals, but if you have a big company that's going to build a 250,000 foot building, they're going to be able to get those material amounts and plug it into a tool like this, and then they're going to see what the impact is going to be as far as the raw materials and all that sort of stuff, and then they can use that information as part of their life cycle assessment of or whatever other purpose that they're looking for. All right, next thing I'm going to look at here is again, I'm looking at building materials here. So this is actually the University of Wisconsin here, which I found from one of the previous EPA pages. And what this one shows is, you can see it's actually using GIS information here. And I hope this shows well here. I'm going to go ahead and move this and enlarge it. Okay. All right, so looking here in Pennsylvania, you click on any one of these things that pops up here, and you can see, okay, this is the Wayne Township landfill. It's telling you it's a solid waste landfill. Click on this one up here, and this is reclaimed asphalt material. So it's going to show the types of materials that are either produced by these industrial facilities or handled by a processor. And over on the left-hand side of the screen, if you were looking at something super specific, like if you only wanted to look at coal fly ash, you could just check that box and you can see what's there. Now, again, this is just one little niche that I went down here as far as construction and demolition type stuff. Certainly, I'm sure a number of you out there have different material uses and different issues that you're going to consider. All right, and this is the OECD's page. Again, the UN International Organization, and there's lots of good information in here as far as, for instance, if I click on this environmental policy tools, you'll see all the stuff that they have pertaining to it. So tons and tons of information out there, and that's actually part of the problem is that there's so much stuff. How do you know how to deal with it? So what we'll do here is let's go, I'm going to go back here to the Sustainable Materials Management Tools, and let's say I'm going to click on this warm model. And what I'm going to do now is, let's say that I'm neck deep into this thing. I'm going to go into the background documents, and landfilling and landfill carbon storage. Okay, so that might be kind of hard to find the next time that I go to use that. So what I can do is I can use a program called Evernote. And what I actually have is the browser that I'm using, Chrome, actually has an Evernote plugin here. So all I need to do is click on this little elephant that's up here. And it's saying, how do I want to save it here? So I can save it in a number of different formats. And I can decide what notebook I want to put this in. And I made a little notebook here so that we can see it. And let's say I wanted to put a tag here. I could create a tag and I could call it landfills. And so then that tag will be associated with it. And then I can go ahead up here and save the clip. Okay, so it went ahead and saved it. So now let me go over to my Evernote. There you can see it. It beat us here. And this is literally the page that I just tagged. So it's a good spot for, as you're going through researching a topic or looking for more information, is whenever you find a nugget and you don't want to, you're worried that you might not be able to find it again, just send it to Evernote, because it's a good place to, it is a notebook per se. You're saving web pages, but it's nice because you can search on it. So for instance, if I go over to my other notebooks here, and let's say that I go into, you know what, I'm going to go to the main search box here. So let's say that I'm going to search on its term, Arduino. An Arduino is a microprocessor that's used for control systems, but I know I have a bunch of notes in there about it, so I'm just going to go ahead and select that. And what it will then do is it's going to pull down every time I've tagged something having to do with Arduino. There we are. Okay. So for whatever reason, I thought the Arduino conversion of a pinball machine was interesting at some point a few months ago. So there that is. But literally, you can go. So here's my very first note I took, in 2013. So the nice thing about it is these are all, they're all able to be searched by text. So your ability to find and organize things is only constrained by your imagination or how you like to organize things in your own head. And that's kind of the nice thing about tools like this, is everyone kind of thinks differently. They kind of categorize things differently. So you can set up the notebooks as you need to and organize the data that way, because it's hard to find you might have a recollection of somebody sent you an email message and they sent you this link, 6 months ago, and you thought, oh, that's kind of interesting. Let me click on it. And you click on it and you open up the page and you're like, yeah, that is interesting. I don't need this right now, but I might need it down the road. Save it to Evernote or save it to whatever other system you're going to use. And it's doing all the hard lifting as far as remembering things. All you have to remember is, what to search for, which, arguably is difficult sometimes. So, so I think that's all I might want to show you from that right now. Let me go back to the PowerPoint. All right. And some other, I did talk about all of these. Yeah, the OECD, yeah. And there are tons and tons of other online resources, and it's so hard to pick out one to illustrate, because all of you guys are coming from all over the country, and we often have international people. So you hate to say, well, you got to search Google, but really, if you're smart about how you search Google, it really can be good for at least getting you a starting point for something. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to show you a regional waste exchange. And the one I'm going to show you is the one in the middle here, which is the Southeast Regional Exchange. And what that does is, okay, so this I found on, I've forgotten already. I found it on, I found this on one of the state pages that I was looking at. So let me make this a little bit bigger. All right. So this particular regional group, and it kind of illustrates why it's sometimes difficult to find information, again, because states handle things logistically and legislatively, within the state container. But, we're here in Pennsylvania, and we'll deal with people in New Jersey or Maryland or New York or Ohio or whatever. So what different places are doing is they're setting up regional groups or exchanges so that people who have similar interests in recycling or material exchange can all coordinate. So the one I'm going to show you here, as you can see, it's showing a number of different sites: Alabama, Arkansas. The one that I'm going to go to is North Carolina, and so what this is showing is this is the North Carolina Waste Trader. You can see it's the North Carolina Division of Environmental Assistance that runs this. And what they're saying is these are, and what you can do is you can create an account if you're a business or a municipality that has trouble getting rid of a material, or you're looking for material. You could create an account to an exchange like this and offer up the services here. So here you can see these are all materials that are available, and these are, you might see any number of random things here, from Astrobubble packaging to baby diapers that are baled, and you can see how much they have, how often they're available, because a number of places have recurring resources that are available. Sometimes they're free, sometimes they're prices. And what you can do is, let's say we're interested in this Astrobubble packaging. We can click on this link, and it's going to tell you what you need to know about it and how to contact that person. So that's the concept of one of these material exchanges. Is people are making the conscious effort because they don't want it to go into the landfill. There might be a monetary value for it, or they might be socially motivated to do that. So these sites are all pretty much the same. They'll show what's available, and oftentimes, let's say you're looking for something here, you can click on the materials wanted, and here's 6 different people here in North Carolina that want these particular materials. I mean, somebody there wants weekly loads of peanut hulls. That might be tough to fill here in Pennsylvania, but I guess in North Carolina there's a demand for them. So that's just an example of a state exchange or a regional exchange. So what I would suggest, if you're interested in something like this, search in your state, search in your region. If there's a local recycling organization, something like NERC in the Northeast, or a National Recycling Coalition, national organizations, they're all good starting spots to help find this information. But Google's pretty good too. When I was looking for this particular material trader to show you guys, I just typed in state material exchanges, and 2 minutes later I have the page here that I wanted to show you. So it's nice that there's so much stuff available on the web. It's overwhelming sometimes when you're trying to drill into a specific topic, or you're trying to find a particular piece of interest. So that's why the network-based web tools like Evernote, and as I've already said a couple of times, let me go back to our example that we pulled up earlier. Because they're cloud-based web apps, I can pull my phone out of my pocket now if I wanted to, and I can open up Evernote on my phone, and I can see that this is there. Let's say that I'm in a meeting with my phone, and a presenter presents something that I'm interested in. I can type in the URL, put it in Evernote, and then the next time I'm back at my desk, the note's going to show there, and then I can click on it. So it really is powerful, even given the security things that we talked about earlier. It's just, all major companies have made the decision that the utility and the efficiency and the overall productivity gains that these companies are getting by using these web-based apps far outweighs whatever risk they might incur by having company data out there. Now, having said that, they're not being crazy about, how do I say this? there is a very deliberative process when companies go to make these decisions about what data they're going to put out there, store on the web. And, you know, back to saying, well, you just have to trust it. I mean, if it's good enough for all of the Fortune 500 companies, if they're comfortable with their employees sending around company proprietary information and storing things here and there, it's okay for me as well. So I guess that's kind of the bottom line is that there's such utility in being able to use networked applications and being able to store specific content related things like this landfilling carbon storage example that I happen to pull up here. There is such value in being able to access that and share it and collaborate on it and post it in chat and say, hey, Bob, did you see that? I just saw this and I think this might pertain to our next project whenever we deal with XYZ or whatever. So that value is key. And I think it's especially useful for smaller companies, you know, smaller organizations. You know, for instance, the Recycling Market Center here in Harrisburg, you know, we're a fairly small group. We have 6 people and we have a couple of remote people. And, you know, the guy who's in Pittsburgh, you know, sometimes might feel like he's the odd man out because we're the rest of us here in Harrisburg. So there's a value in us using these collaborative tools. That way he stays in the loop and he can coordinate and he's involved in the drafting of documents and whatever business process is going on, the technology enables that. So all right, so let's see what else we have here in the PowerPoint. Any other questions, Wayne?
Yeah, one attendee asked to go back to the resource page. They want to take a screenshot of that.
Sure.
And can you talk a little bit about the NRC Recycles website, the NRC website?
Sure. So this was probably the source page you were talking about here. So I'll leave that up for another second. And yeah, the NRC Recycles, I'll open that up. I think I
mean, these slides are available for handouts, so you can look at them that way. And you can also view the YouTube video to, you know, go through stuff like Scott went through with the Evernote.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, so NRC Recycles. So was there something in particular on the NRC page, Wayne? There we go. Yeah, so here's the SMM page on the NRC website. Let me drill into one of these. It's strange we're getting this HTML code in here. Yeah, the website might not like my version of Chrome. In any case, I did see something I wanted to show you. Yeah, the page isn't rendering right on my computer here, Wayne. Let me see if I can pluck a couple of these resources out of here.
Yeah, just to show that there's a lot of resources on this website.
Yeah. So there's here's the events calendar. Here's a number of different markets workshops. The news, upcoming webinars, training and certification, and SMM. And here you can see on this SMM page, there are links back to, like this second one here is the link that I already showed you, the EPA's SMM page. Yeah, so again, this goes back to what I was saying is that, you know, a really good place to look first if you're not, you know, before going to Google and just accepting what it sends you, you know, go to your, if you're already working with an organization like the NRC or another more regional organization, definitely check their page first, because, you know, not only will they have the links to the main pages back at EPA or the state organization, but they're likely to have more regional content that might be appropriate to, you know, people in your state, you know, things that are specific to your region or your business even, rather than just the generic stuff that you might find on the EPA site.
Speaking of news, Scott, here's a question from an attendee. How do you avoid the fake news that's out there?
Oh my goodness.
Is there a way to ensure how valid a website is with SMM info?
Wow. Yeah, this is a problem that I'm sure everyone is painfully aware of how difficult it is. You know, billion-dollar companies like Facebook and Twitter and you know, even you know, so-called mainstream news sites like a CNN or something like that, you know, people are accepting that data as valid, you know. But what we've seen over the past couple of years is that, you know, it's hard to trust some of that info. You know, there's been instances in the past where Facebook has been used improperly, the way that it shouldn't have been. You know, certainly everyone's probably aware of, you know, the last election, how there may have been an impact from Facebook. But not only that, I mean, there's stuff that has to do with bullying and online harassment and that sort of stuff. So I'll tell you, you know, I'm not the biggest fan of Facebook. I do have an account because everyone that I know has an account, and I go on there reluctantly, but I personally am a little uncomfortable with how Facebook shares my data, yet I make the decision to still use it. So again, you're back to the decision to use it, given the utility that you're going to get from it. But back to the original question, Facebook is spending lots of money, hundreds of millions of dollars now, so that people will have trust in their content, so that they will, so that they can analyze that a post is from an actual advocacy group. You know, let's say it's you know, a dog rescue group. That way you can be comfortable that it's a dog rescue, it's coming from a dog rescue group. It's not, you know, somebody else who wants to pretend that they are a dog rescue group for whatever other nefarious purpose there might be. I wish there were an easy answer to it, primarily because I too am concerned about the reliability of the information that I see. But, you know, secondarily, if I had the magic bullet to that, you know, I'd be making some money, I'm sure. But it's a difficult problem, and, you know, it's a problem that we weren't even really thinking about. I mean, people were thinking about it maybe 10 years ago, 15 years ago. We started thinking about it in the security industry, but, you know, at that point, you know, 15 years ago, you know, banks are just worried about, well, can I offer a mobile app kind of thing? I mean, it's been an evolution. You know, all of the low-hanging fruit has mostly been plucked, so to speak. So, you know, the first systems that were getting hacked were, you know, banks and, you know, ways that people could make quick money. And, you know, now it's kind of trickled down as security professionals have figured out how to handle certain sorts of attacks. And it's always an arms race. You know, I mean, I'm sure everyone's familiar with antivirus software that you have on your computers. I mean, that's always an arms race. You know, the virus writers and then the antivirus people, and they're always one-upping each other, and new viruses are coming out, and then you have these new attack vectors that are coming out. So it's a continual loop. And you know, what we're just seeing now, you know, is that, well, we can't necessarily trust what we read on the page, you know, and you know, not to frighten anyone else who's already not frightened by these things. I mean, it's to the point now where video can be spoofed. I mean, there have been videos that have been online recently in the last couple of months where I'm trying to think of the specific example that the one that got my attention a month or two ago, but it was a video, and you know, I don't know, was it whether it was a political figure or it was a celebrity, but basically what they did was they showed a celebrity, I believe, who, it was a clip of them. They were asked a question, a public interview, and they were asked a fairly innocuous question. And I apologize, I don't remember exactly what it was, but they were asked a simple question that they had no trouble answering, even though they knew they were broadcasting it to the world. And they were able to modify it. They were able to modify the text, and then it gets, or excuse me, they modify the voice so that it actually said something a little bit different, so that it wasn't the message that they were saying. It was something completely different. And the thing that I'm talking about was actually a demonstration of the technology rather than being a case that hit the news. But it's to the point now where video is not even dependable anymore. And the example that I'm thinking of was, it was President. It was footage from an appearance that President Obama made. It was a public statement that he made back when he was president, talking about something, and they actually put. No, I think I'm misremembering it. It was something that somebody else said that wasn't something that President Obama would have said. And what they did is they found him saying something that was similar in length, and the words were similar, so that you couldn't tell. Like, if you could see that the mouth looked like it was making those words, but it was his face on this other person's body, and you're thinking, oh my gosh, did President Obama really say that? Bottom line is that it's even to the point now, because computers are so powerful and there's so much data out there, that it's getting hard to trust even video, which is pretty scary. But you know, this is the brave new world we're living in now. I wish I could be more optimistic about it, but I mean, I am optimistic in general. I mean, I do think that the value that we're getting from everyone having personal video players and personal video cameras in their pocket and being able to reach out to relatives across the world, I think it's all a good thing. But I think it's a natural progression in, you know, looking at it from the security point of view. I think it's just a natural progression. I mean, that the entrepreneurs and the people that are starting these billion-dollar companies and the Facebooks and this sort of thing, they're moving faster than the security people are. They're moving faster than academia, such that when, you know, really eye-opening things like faked video or fake news pages, it's an interesting time to be living anyway. But yeah. You know, I'm still using everything. Everyone I know is still using everything, even all the security, you know, even though I've been out of security for about 10 years, a lot of my really good friends are still neck deep in it, and they all use the stuff. And so no escaping it, I suppose.
Yeah, one suggestion we got from an attendee is, you know, just go to your trusted websites, like your SROs, the state recycling organizations, EPA, your state environmental agencies, etc. So,
absolutely, yeah. You know, the recycling industry here in Pennsylvania, as I'm sure even nationally, either within your states or nationally, I've only been in recycling for the last 4 or 5 years, doing the electronic scrap with an electronic scrap focus, and I know how small the community is here in Pennsylvania, so I know who I can talk to, or if I have a question about something, I know who I can trust, kind of thing. So you know, perhaps it's good to look at websites as an extension of the networks that you already have. You know, instead of being able to call up somebody to ask them for their particular opinion on something, if they would say something like, well, you know, I'm not really sure myself, but, you know, I've worked with this company here in the past, or I've worked with this organization in the past, I would trust what they would say. I would go to their webpage first or whatever. And yeah, that's a great comment for sure.
Okay.
Any other questions? I think I might be at the end of the PowerPoint here. Let me pull it up here real quick.
We had we have a master's student here that has a suggestion on developing a common database of that can house and track and distribute SMM materials.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's a good idea. And I think your example of the Evernote of compiling your own database over time. I mean, there's just so much information out there. To separate the wheat from the chaff is to kind of go through it yourself and keep what you like and don't keep what you don't. So.
Yeah, for sure. And I think everybody, because certainly none of us likes to reinvent the wheel. And, I know in us here in Pennsylvania, we're being impacted by various environmental things coming along. But I know personally, like for instance, I was asked to, we were contacted by a Pennsylvania organization a while back, and they were asking about solar panel recycling. And, that was the first time I'd been asked that, but, I know that California is usually at the leading edge when it comes to these sorts of things. So that's kind of the first place that I went. And sure enough, there is actually proposed legislation in California for handling for handling solar panels. But your point, Wayne, and the students' comment is that there's incredible value in being able to have all this stuff networked. The thing is that as I mentioned earlier, these pages are out there, but they don't do anybody any good if you don't know where to look for it, or you're not a Google wizard, or sometimes I mean, I've been using Google since 1995 or whenever it first came out, because I was in the industry, and I'm probably as a proficient a Google searcher as anybody, and sometimes you just can't find what you're looking for, So certainly, whatever ideas are out there or systems, certainly would benefit, people who don't do this sort of thing for a living. So the graduate student who has a suggestion, yeah, certainly feel free to send me an email about what your idea is. And I know some other people in the area here that are working on similar things, and would love to hear what you have to say.
Okay, looks like we're going to wrap up here. So.
I think we are. I think I've talked about everything else here. Oh, I didn't talk a little bit about WARM. Are we running out of time, Wayne? Yeah, I guess we kind of are.
A couple minutes yet. Okay.
So what WARM is, real quick, as we already mentioned, it's used to help solid waste planners, and it's sponsored by the EPA. We did do a webinar last year on the full plumbing, a lot of detail. But what I will show you, since I opened it up here, is I actually brought this is the WARM model itself. So let me make this a little bit bigger here. So this is the spreadsheet that you can download from the EPA site. And you'll see across the bottom here, there's just all sorts of tabs here. The very first tab here is a little user's guide here. And then basically what you do is you go in and you click on the various tabs here, and you can fill in all of these sorts of things here, depending upon the types of material that you're using, how much is being recycled, how much is being landfilled, how much is being burned, composted, anaerobically digested, etc. And you can just put in all these specific inputs depending upon what your usage is, and then it will then generate just all of these analysis tabs through the magic of Excel. So that's what WARM is. You can find it on the EPA website, and we do have a webinar with more detail that's on the YouTube channel. So I think we are done, Wayne.
One more comment. Another attendee mentioned about a training for certified sustainable resource management professionals, and it's called greeneducation.us. It's done online, and the next semester starts tomorrow.
Greeneducation.us. So is this already a defined standard? I wonder if it's already a defined standard. I'm not familiar with that one. I will definitely look at that after we get off the call here. Greeneducation.us.
Yep. Okay. All right, we're going to wrap it up now. So again, this webinar, like all the webinars in this series, has been recorded. Will be made available via YouTube links on both the National Recycling Coalition and Recycling Market Center websites. Thanks again for joining us. We hope you'll join us for next month's webinar, and please visit the NRC and RMC websites for schedule updates. And thanks a lot, Scott, for taking the time to do all this research and getting it out to us.
And thanks to everyone for listening. Have a great day.
Yep, have a great day. So long.